Daygame in popular daygame cities: Prague in Czech Republic, Warsaw and Krakow in Poland, Budapest in Hungary, Medellin in Bogota, etc. etc. You've heard about these cities, maybe, probably you've been to a few of them. And when you go to these cities, you will see other daygamers on the streets there. But is it a bad thing? And if so, what can you do to still get as much as possible out of these cities? Let's talk about that. We'll be covering different topics. I have a bunch of notes here on my laptop. How many daygamers are there? Too many. So how many daygamers do you have to see on the street to kind of think, okay, like this is a bit sketchy? Because sometimes you see one or two and that's kind of one thing, but when you see 10, well, that's a completely different topic. We will talk about how girls' reactions change if a city has seen many daygamers, and also with different types of girls. How will the amount of daygamers there affect your results there? What can you do to improve your chances in these cities to achieve the results you want to achieve? Why is it a good idea to actually go to these very popular daygame cities? And something very clickbaity, what are the best non-overgamed cities in the world? And I'm not gonna give you a city list. I know it sounds clickbaity, but I'm gonna tell you how to find these cities. Okay, so let's start diving into these topics. And as always, a few updates about my travel plans, where I'm going, coaching spots, etc. I'm soon heading to Latin America. I'm spending November and December in different places in Argentina. I spent my last winter there, but I didn't go to Patagonia and to many other places I still want to see. So I actually want to go there, coach a few guys. I will have up to 4 coaching spots there, but I want to travel the rest of the time around Argentina and explore its beautiful nature and small cities. After New Year's Eve, early 2023, I have a few options. I might go to Brazil, I might go to Mexico, or I might even stay longer in Argentina. I don't really have plans yet. It really depends on my mood. It depends what's with the COVID restrictions in different countries, and it also depends on where there will be more guys interested in getting coaching. So if you are interested in learning daygame in field in Argentina or Brazil or Mexico, then in the description there is a link where you can find out more about coaching. Fill the form at the bottom of the page, mention the place where you are interested in, and I'll send you all the details, the dates that are possible, prices, cities, etc. If you're going to these popular daygame cities and you're going out and you're getting some numbers, but you see that the numbers are flaky, they're not coming out on dates, or they come out on dates and those dates lead to nowhere, then I have published several free texting and dating courses. If you want to improve your texting and your dating game, then those courses are available for free on daygamecourses.com. And also, if you want to ask more questions about these cities that we didn't cover here, then we have a huge group chat with more than 350 guys from all over the world. And there, no one is whining about how hard Daygame is. There are no keyboard dating experts, Daygame experts. There is a clear tier system to see how good the guy giving advice actually is. And the only thing we do there is technical, actual, action-oriented conversation. So if you want to join that, also the link to join it is in the description of this podcast, whether you're watching this on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And now let's start talking about daygame in popular daygame cities, in what some might call overgamed daygame cities. So number one, how many daygamers are there? Too many. When can you consider a city overgamed? Well, I am right now in Warsaw in Poland, and let's just say most of the days we saw no daygamers on the street. We saw 0 daygamers most of the days. But then I was coaching a student on a Saturday evening, and it was just unbelievable. There are 3 main areas in Warsaw where people daygame, and all of those areas were like you could walk through that area and you would see several sets in each of those areas. It was unreal. So if you go to a place and you see like 1 or 2 guys running around the streets, then that is not a problem. It doesn't mean that the city is overgamed. I am originally from Riga, Latvia, and I spent most of this summer there. And it was fairly typical for me to run into daygamers at the kind of peak daygame hours, let's say 5 to 7 at the most popular locations. I would maybe see 1, 2, 3 guys there. But those cities, but Riga still wasn't overgamed, and especially if you know what you're doing and you're not spam approaching, then you're kind of fun. You're kind of fine. But if you walk down this kind of main street, main day game street, and you see just like every 50 meters, you see a day game set, and it's very likely that it will change how girls react to day game slightly. So all I want to say with this is, if it's just a few day gamers that you see there, this is not a problem. You're gonna see day gamers in most cities you go to. If it's a capital city of a country and you go out during the peak hours to the peak locations, it's very likely you will see day gamers there. That is not a problem. That's not what we call overgame cities. So next, let's talk about how girls' reactions will change depending on how busy the city is with day gamers, or also how many day gamers in general the city has seen. So is it a place that has seen a day gamer here, a day gamer there, like a few traveling day gamers, or is it a place like Prague where day gamers used to go for years and it was the number one, I think number one day game travel destination in Europe, maybe apart from Kiev, which was even crazier. So let's talk about that. In general, even if the city has seen a bunch of day gamers, except in some extreme cases, I don't think, and if at that evening there aren't that many guys on the street, you're still okay. It's the only problem is if a girl has been opened several times before you opened her the same day, and in that case, of course, there are still girls that are gonna react well, but many girls, if she has been approached 4 other times that day, well, she's not going to react that well at that point. She's more likely to blow you out, or it's more likely to be a very short set, or that number is way more likely to flake. So yeah, if it's a very overgamed evening with many guys out on the street, it doesn't mean that it's impossible to day game. It just means that your results will most likely be worse. You will get more blowouts, the sets will be shorter, numbers will be flakier, etc. So a great example is the same Saturday I was talking about before. We were going out, I was coaching a student, I was doing a demo, and I opened this beautiful Ukrainian girl, and like 4 or 5 minutes into the conversation, she said, "By the way, you are the fourth guy who approached me on this street. Not that day, not that week, but while she was walking down one street." So of course it's gonna affect how the results you're gonna get, but it doesn't mean it's not gameable, and there are solutions you can use. We're gonna talk about them a little bit later. And even if it's an overgamed city, but the specific day isn't, in the specific day the streets are not as full with other day gamers, that is not really a problem. Like I've seen that in Prague, I'm also seeing it here in Warsaw. Unless the streets are completely crowded with day gamers, it's not a problem. We've been doing tons of stops, tons of approaches, and day game still works and they're still reacting nice as long as that day isn't crazy busy. But also it kind of depends on the type of girl you are opening. So let's say you go to a city that is not as overgamed and you see a real stunner, like very beautiful, well-dressed, classy girl, and then in a city that is not that overgamed, there is still a high chance that a girl like that will react fairly well to your open. Whereas in a city that has seen many day gamers, well, this girl has been approached many times. When I coach guys in Riga, and I've coached quite a few guys there, I know all those princessy, the hottest girls of Riga. I've seen all of them, I opened all of them, all the day gamers in Riga have opened them, and most of my students have opened them. So because it's a small place, and so of course they aren't gonna be that open to day game if it's a city that if they have been opened so many times before. So in a smaller city it doesn't really matter. Whereas so in a city that's very popular with day gamers, these princessy girls have been opened many times before. So because it has happened so many times, some of them will simply not just even be polite or say no thank you. They will really just walk around you just because they've said those polite no's so many times. But it doesn't mean that all of them will be like that. Still, if your stop is okay, some of them will be open to communication. The trick is that let's call it the price of entry is still gonna be pretty high. So let's say you're like a really good looking dude, but when you open your mouth, it's your game is terrible. So she's she's still likely to give you a chance. But if you fuck up in the first like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe she'll give you 30 seconds, maybe she'll give you a minute, maybe she'll give you like up to 2 minutes, maybe. It's very possible. So the ones who will give you a chance, they will give you a short chance, and they see if they see you are fine, you're actually quite likely to still run a decent set, get a number, and maybe even get them out. But the percentage of that level of girls that will stop and interact with you is just not what it would be in a less gamed city. And the typical average beautiful girls, we're not talking like crazy classy stanners, well dressed and everything, yeah, but the average beautiful girl, kind of like a lot of girls like you see in places like Prague or Warsaw, or of course the Baltics and many other places, yeah. With those girls, it doesn't really matter that she has been opened quite a few times in her life, because every day gamer in that city hasn't opened her, and she isn't approached by every day game traveler who goes there and happens to be on a same street with her. So even though, yes, they are hot, they are fairly beautiful, yeah, but just because they are not that top tier, they aren't being opened as much. So it doesn't really, I don't think it really matters. So you don't have to worry about that. So with concluding this question, how do girls react? Mostly it depends on how busy the streets are that particular day, and if we're talking about days where the streets aren't crazy busy, it depends on the level of the girl. If she's been open like dozens of times before, then well, you will have to really, if she gives you a chance, you will really have to show good game. And if she is beautiful but not kind of crazy super hot, then she's still very likely to talk to you if you're doing the right things in set. Next, let's talk about how day gaming in places like this, how the amount of day gamers on the street typically in that city will affect your results, the results you are getting in a city. And we are talking here about cities that have seen a bunch of day gamers, but in days where the streets don't have 10 other guys running around on the street, like, you know, like Oxford Street, or also here in Warsaw right now, on the evenings when several coaches are running boot camps, the streets were just so busy that it was we had to move to other locations, and there everything was perfect, and that's one of the things you can do. We will talk about that a little bit later. So we're talking about scenarios like that, and in these cities, of course, girls are being approached, and still they are going out with guys. The question is who they are going out with, and the way this is different from cities that aren't as popular. Basically, the thing that changes in these cities is the price of entry. If you go to a city where no one day games ever, or like it has seen very few day gamers, and you open girl in a direct way with a shit that's not stop, with a stop that's not shit, and in general your game isn't terrible, you're quite likely to actually get some numbers and get some dates, and if you don't fuck up, you know, might even get laid. Whereas if you go to busier cities, to cities that have seen many day gamers, well, it's not that special. No one cares about you opening a girl on the street. Day game has become way more popular over the years. So in these bigger cities, it's in more popular cities, it has become like a typical thing for a girl to get approached. So I kind of divided this into two things, you know, 4 groups, based on what your kind of real, kind of, we could call it sexual market value is, and also what your level of game is. For example, if you are a high value guy, let's say you are a guy from, let's say you're going, like, you know, everyone used to go to Kiev, yeah? And if you're a guy who was from New York City and you went to Kiev, and let's say you don't really have that good of a game. You're a day gamer beginner, you're an intermediate day gamer, maybe you have like 5, 10, 15 day game lays, but like, I think, like, you definitely have less than 30 day game lays. I think if once a guy has 30 day game lays with 60-1 open to lay ratio, I think he's a pretty damn good day gamer. Because getting to 30 lays means you really understand what's up, and if you do that with 60-1, that also means you have pretty decent game. You're not like a fucking magician of day game, but you're a good day gamer. So if you're a guy from New York City going to Kiev, it means you're coming from a place where you definitely live a way better life, most likely, than this girl lives in Kiev. Even if she has sugar daddies and everything else, you're still living a way better life than she does. Well, what's the biggest risk that can happen? The risk is she will want to go to nice places, she will want to go to nice cocktail bars, restaurants, and places like that, and in the end, you're not gonna get laid. And this is what was happening a lot in Kiev. Guys loved going to Kiev, but the secret, and why did they love going to Kiev? Because they were getting decent reactions, they were getting numbers. It's extremely easy to get numbers in Ukraine, and it was very, very easy to get dates in Ukraine. The little trick was that date had nothing to do with getting laid, and the converting dates to lays was a whole different thing there. So if you're a high value dude going to if you're a high value dude but you don't have good game, then that's kind of the risk you are running into. Of course, in most places it's not gonna happen. You might still get some friendly dates, but you might take them to some like expensive places just because it's kind of risky. But let's say you are a high value let's say you are a high value guy, so you're a decent dude, you're decently looking, you're not working like as a clerk in a store, you're maybe running you're a high value dude, you're a dude who a girl would also like to be in a relationship with, not just kind of bang. That's what I mean with high value, because day game isn't a way to fake your sexual market value. It's really not a way to fake your SMV. It's a way to deliver your SMV. So let's talk about high value guys with good game. I would say that's a typical student, like that would be a typical student that I've coached who after coaching kept day gaming and got to a pretty decent level. For these guys, if they're already high value and they have game, it's gonna be easy. It's gonna be easy even in overgame cities, and they don't really have to worry about that, and they're gonna be doing fairly good. Let's talk about the guy who's a guy of like, it's average dude. Yeah, he's not like the best looking guy, but like with money and everything, and he's not a bum, and let's say this is like the average self-taught day gamer who's like lives an average life, works an average job, has average looks, but he has decent game. So also in these places, it's still gonna be very, very doable. If you have game and you have average looks, you're not dressed terribly. Yeah, if your style is fucked up, then the more overgame the place is, the worse you're gonna do, and they're just gonna. I remember the price of entry is kind of higher in these places. So if you look like shit, then well, I mean, fix your style. It's super easy to fix your style. It's super easy to fix your grooming and everything else. And I have a bunch of content coming out about this. Most likely later this year, we're planning a video series on my YouTube channel with my stylist about style tips to day gamers in different age groups. So make sure that you don't miss that. But again, a guy like that, average looking guy, average value in all terms, and has good game, he will still be doing very good. If we take the same guy, the average guy with average game, let's say he's a beginner, maybe he is like 5-10 day game lays, something like that, most likely he will be able to get some dates, but most of those dates will go to nowhere, because again, he will get more blowouts, he will get less numbers, and then those numbers will be even flakier, and then the ones that come out on dates will still, they've been around, they know what's what, and he's gonna get less success on the dates. But then again, once in a while, these guys are gonna get laid. So let's say if a guy like that comes to this overgamed or very popular day game city for at least a few weeks, maybe a month, day game's pretty hard, goes a bit hard, works kind of on the right things, I think there is still a pretty high chance of him getting laid if it's not for like a week or 1.5 weeks, if he actually spends a minimum of 3 weeks in this city. So I think that's kind of the conclusion of how you can expect your results to be affected depending on what your SMV is and how good your game is. And now let's talk about the next topic: what to do about it in these cities, or what to change in your day game to improve the chance of success, whether that is getting laid or whatever else, in such places. And we're going to be talking about two things. Number one, location where you are day gaming, and number two, changing a few things in your set. So every city has one or two locations where everyone is day gaming. That would be Union Square in New York City, Oxford Street in London, Napríklad in Prague, Zloté Terasy, the shopping mall in Warsaw. That would be the Old Town and the circle around the Old Town in Krakow. That would be Santa Fe Mall in Medellin. And by the way, I've done day game guides on New York City and on Medellin. So if you're day gaming in those cities, I've covered many day game locations in those cities. And before I leave Warsaw this month, I'm also going to publish a guide about Warsaw. Like, it's going to be a 3-part guide with is it overgamed, the best places for day gaming and getting an apartment. And also kind of my general overview, how me and all of my students, how we all did day gaming here. So all that is going to be on a YouTube channel. You can search for it on you can search for the day game guides there. Even though these cities are popular, you can get good results in all of these cities if you are going to better locations. And there are second-tier locations. I call them second-tier locations or second-tier streets. You can find streets, metro stations, malls that are a bit away, like slightly off the main day game locations. Maybe you've been to Belgrade, Serbia. There's this one, Knez Mihaila, the main day game street where everyone is day gaming. Yeah, but there are a few streets, 1 or 2 streets away, very nice streets where you can day game, where no one is. Everyone is on that one big shopping street. Everyone's day gaming there, but those all other streets, no one is really day gaming there. So that's what you can do in all of these cities. Look at streets, metro stations, malls further away. Open Google Maps and go to that city and look for a shopping mall. Look for the biggest, busiest shopping malls on Google Maps. You can see what times, how many people are in the shopping mall, what hours are the busiest for those locations. So that works for shopping malls. Maybe it works for metro stations. I'm not really sure about that, but explore. And usually those locations are not that far away from the main place where you'll be day gaming. So that's one thing you could do, and that works very, very well. Okay. Second thing you can do, you can improve the beginning of your set. Yes, in many places, those places are popular for a reason. There are reasons why guys go to those places. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later. This is going to be the next topic. But in many places, girls will stop, even if you have a weak day game stop, maybe even if you are walking with them. I see some guys doing that here. We'll try doing that in New York City, yeah. But the thing is, they will leave right after you deliver your opener, or right after you say, oh, you don't look Polish, you look Italian or Spanish. They've heard that stuff 10 times before, yeah. You don't have to use copy-paste lines all the time. Well, I do suggest using copy-paste lines in the beginning of your set, but I'm not suggesting that you take someone else's lines that everyone is using. Because like most of the day gamers who are following London day game model, they're using the same lines, the same stacks, and girls have heard all of that material before, especially if they're really hot in an overgamed city. So come up with your own material. Come up with your pre-opener that you like. Come up with an opener you like. And most importantly, come up with some nice stacks that are sparking her emotions, that make it really easy for her to respond with a topic to talk about. Because if you're really sparking her emotions in the beginning of a set, she might forget that, oh, again, someone is opening me, or I'm running to work, I'm late for this, I'm thinking about this, yeah. If you spark her emotions, then her logical brain turns off a little bit, and then she switches to her emotional side a little bit more, and you're much more likely to get better reactions. Then again, after the set, once she kind of gets back to her logical brain, that's where the numbers start flaking, but that's a whole different topic. Then we're gonna talk about grounding and comfort and things like that. If you don't know how to come up with your own kind of pre-opener, opener, and stack, then just go to my YouTube channel, search for, under playlists, look for the Structured Natural Approach video series, and watch first 5 videos where I explain everything from small nuances in the front stop, and then I explain different pre-openers you can use and openers you can use, and I explain stacking. The stacking video will be the most important for you at this phase if you want to kind of stand apart or stand out a little bit in these cities. So just at least watch that stacking advanced video, and that kind of should help you understand how to change your opener so that you would get a bit better results. Actually, this is I have been thinking about it a lot, and I recently started like a test project, let's call it like that. I decided to test the group accountability calls. So what I did, I started a group of 5 guys who signed up for 6 weekly calls with a guy who's like a very good day gamer I know, and he's doing those calls. And not only it's about accountability and only doing at least 25 sets each week, but each week they have different things they have to focus on, and different homeworks and things they have to really do in their sets. And one thing I really focus on their one thing I really make them focus while they're doing that is coming up with their own stacks, so they aren't using copy paste shit. Coming up with stories about their life that are true stories, because a lot of guys live interesting lives, have had interesting things happen in their life. They just don't know how to tell those stories. So we were focusing on coming up with a lot of interesting stuff, interesting stories about themselves, better stacks, and improving their storytelling. When a chick says, oh yeah, I'm not Polish, I'm actually Italian, well, boom, how do you work with that topic? And you can obviously do this, the old, oh, when I think about Italy, I think about 3 things, but there are way better things you can do. So again, in these places, you might want to work on improving your game and moving away from lines you've copied from someone else, and use this as an opportunity to come up with something that's unique for you, while at the same time still following the structure, still using those 1, 2, 3 stacks in all the sets you're doing until you get to maybe 20 day game lays. I'm fine, like start experimenting after that, that's fine. Okay, and now with the next topic, let's talk about why is it a good idea to day game in these very popular day game cities. And well, there are a few reasons why these cities are so popular. There is a very good volume of girls in all of these popular cities. The volume is very good. Quality is also usually very good. Yeah, if you think like, you can think about it, Prague or some cities in Poland or Medellin, like all of those cities have how many beautiful girls. Same goes for Budapest. In most of these places, they are more or less receptive to day game, but again, if you look at maybe New York City and London, then maybe not. And if you look at Budapest, then it kind of depends on where you are day gaming. If you are day gaming on that fashion street, well, that's going to be tricky given how overgamed that is. And also, these cities are very, very good for learning, in my opinion. But it doesn't mean that the fact that these cities are with good volume, good quality, receptive to day game, it doesn't mean that guys are getting laid in those cities. The good stories about the cities come from what? They usually come from, well, most guys are not going on day game trips for a month like I do. If I go to a city, I usually go for at least a month because it's just more interesting to me. Most stories come from guys who went there for a week or less, or maybe 2 weeks, and they would go to, you can, I don't know, any example, you can take Kiev, yeah? They would go to Kiev, they would get numbers from really hot girls, those girls would respond, and those girls would come out, and most of those guys, most of those stories would not be about guys that got laid. Some of them did, of course, But these guys always had a feeling that if I stayed there longer, I would have definitely gotten laid with a super hot girl like that. Yeah, if you have sufficient game, or you just run into the right girl, yes, of course. And that's where the stories come from. It's sort of like a casino. You never know when it's gonna happen, when you're gonna hit the jackpot. So that's why these cities are so amazing. I think they are really, really good for learning, because in a city where girls are more receptive to day game, you're not gonna get as many blowouts if your beginning of a set is okay. So in a place where you're getting blown out all the time, you're gonna practice a lot of your stop, or maybe your pre-opener and opener, but stacking, you're gonna be practicing less, and then they will leave, and then you won't have many opportunities to practice storytelling and what to do after hook point, and your texting and your dating. And that's why guys go into day game trips to easier cities, and they go to cities where girls are stopping, are responding to their stacks, and they like that storytelling, and they hook, and then they're staying longer in a set, and they're giving their numbers. So guys get to practice all the parts of the day game set, and that is the biggest pro of going to these popular day game cities. They are great for practicing. Are they great for getting laid? Maybe not great, but they're okay for getting laid as well. There are obviously way better cities. As I said, we're gonna be talking about that clickbaity part, yeah, the best non-overgame cities. But I do think it's a great idea to go to popular day game cities, even though they are flooded with day gamers. You just have to understand why you're going there. You're going there to practice day game. Maybe if you get really lucky, you're gonna get laid. Yeah, okay. Let's move to the next topic. The best non-overgamed cities. And as I told in the beginning, this is clickbaity. I'm not going to give you a list, but I'm going to give you a very simple tip how to find these cities. Go to any popular day game country and go to second tier cities. Poland has a lot of them. Also, Colombia has a bunch of cities that aren't as explored. Everyone is going to Medellin. Well, have you been to Bogota and tried day gaming there? Let me tell you a little secret. If you like the type of girls in Bogota, they are way more receptive to day game than girls in Medellin, just because how much day game Medellin has seen. If you're talking about Ukraine, last summer I spent 3 months in Kharkov, Ukraine, which is the second largest city in Ukraine. And I did incredibly well. For me, that was the pussy paradise. The little trick here was I speak fluent Russian, and if I didn't, I wouldn't be doing that great there. Although the guys I coached there, I think at least half of them got laid there, even with extremely low levels of English that are kind of typical there. But so yeah, go to any popular day game country and go to second tier cities. A lot of them are really amazing if they are big enough. Yeah, so it would have to be bigger countries. So Poland, a bunch of cities. Budapest, I'm not really sure, but I told you what to do in places like Budapest. Go to second tier locations. I coached a guy there, and we did maybe a few sets on that fashion street. Everything else was done in very good locations outside of main day game areas where girls were way more receptive. So that's how you can find amazing day game cities. Just look around for other big cities in that country. One thing you're not gonna find online is actually, it's gonna be very hard to find a lot of good quality reports about these second tier cities, because a lot of guys simply will not talk about them. I've been to quite a few of these second tier cities, and I love day gaming there, but I'm not mentioning them because, well, I don't want in some weird way them to become more and more popular and everyone will start going there, and then, well, I am fine. I'm happy that people go to Warsaw and Krakow and Prague and I don't know, Medellin. I'm super happy about that, because that leaves so many cities for me to go to where there are almost no day gamers, and it's really amazing. So those second tier cities are places that most likely you will have to be exploring on your own. By the time you start seeing good quality reports on bigger outlets, bigger YouTube channels, bigger podcasts, yeah, everyone will start to go there, and the same fate will happen in those cities. Well, guys, that's all I wanted to tell about the overgame cities. If you are in those places, and if you are getting numbers, or maybe but they're flaking, or maybe you are going on dates but those are dates and overs, then a reminder that You are very likely making some mistakes in your texting and in your dating, and I have created several free texting and dating courses that are available on daygamecourses.com. And if you have specific questions about these cities, then it's more than likely that in our group chat we have guys who are from those cities or who have been from those cities, because we have more than 350 guys, and a lot of them and some of them have been to some very bizarre locations that I've never even heard about before. Especially like we had this guy in Brazil who had been to crazy small cities in Brazil that I didn't even know existed. So if you want to ask any questions about specific cities, you can do so in our Daygame Church Telegram group chat, and again, the link to join that is in the description of this video. If you want to join me on my Daygame adventures to maybe some cities that most people don't go to, then I said I am gonna be in Argentina, maybe in Brazil, maybe in Mexico, so November, December, and then after the New Year's. If you're interested in working with me in any of those places, then click in the link description about Daygame coaching, fill the form at the bottom of the page, and I'll get back to you with all the information. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. As always, if you like this, give this a thumbs up, subscribe, or if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, I will appreciate if you leave me a review if you listen to this to the end of the podcast, simply because it helps me reach more people. It helps me to get a bit more discovered and share my Daygame advice with more people. Thank you and ciao.